In this problem, we're asked to solve this equation here. Well, what type of equation is it? If you notice, it has a radical in it, a square root. And how many square roots does it have? Just one. So what are the steps in solving a radical equation that involves one square root? Okay, so here are the steps. What is step one? Step one says isolate the square root. Is my square root isolated? No, I've got the 3 in the way. So I'm going to have to subtract 3 from both sides. And I'm going to write the answer down here. On the left-hand side, I'm going to get the square root of 3x plus 1 equals x minus 3. So now I've isolated the square root. Now I'm going to have to square both sides of the equation in order to remove the radical. So I'm going to square the left-hand side, and I have to square the right-hand side as a binomial. So on the left-hand side, when you square a square root, you just get the radicand. So I'm going to get 3x plus 1 equals. Now be careful. X minus 3 all squared really means x minus 3 times x minus 3. So our left-hand side is still 3x plus 1 equals. Now FOIL it out. X times x is x squared. Outer x times negative 3 is negative 3x. Inner negative 3 times x is negative 3x. And last, negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. So I have squared both sides to remove the radical. And now I've got to simplify and then solve the resulting equation. So let's simplify it to start with. I get 3x plus 1 equals x squared. Negative 3x added to negative 3x is negative 6x plus 9. What type of equation is this? This is a quadratic equation, degree 2. So I need everything on one side and 0 on the other. So I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. And I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. So I get 0 equals x squared. Negative 6 added to negative 3 is going to give me negative 9x, and 9 minus 1 is going to give me positive 8. So there I have my quadratic equation, and we need to try and factor it. And remember, we're going to compare that to ax squared plus bx plus c. What is a, the coefficient of the x squared? It is 1. B is the coefficient of the x, negative 9, and C is the constant, which is 8. A times C is 1 times 8, which is 8. So I need two numbers that multiply. Believe it or not, that says multiply to AC, which is 8, and they have to add to B, which is negative 9. If they multiply to a positive, the signs are the same. They add to a negative, they're both negative. So I'm going to start with negative 1 times negative 8 is multiplies to positive 8. And luckily, negative 1 plus a negative 8 adds up to negative 9. So those are my two factors. Since A was equal to 1, I don't have to break down the middle term. So these are my factors, so I'm going to get 0 equals x minus 1 times x minus 8. So I'm going to have to go to the next slide. But before I do that, I want to just finish the steps off. So when we've simplified and solved the resulting equation, don't forget, this isn't you can check if you feel like it. This is you must check all your solutions. So now let's go to the next slide. And this is where I got to. I'd factored it. So two factors multiplied together equals 0. You set each of them equal to 0. So I have x minus 1 equals 0 and x minus 8 equals 0. Add 1 to both sides here, I get x equals 1. Add 8 to both sides here, I get x equals 8. Okay, so I'm not done. Remember, you must check both of your solutions because you're making sure you do not have extraneous solutions. So to start with, I'm going to check x equals 1. So I'm going to put 1 here and 1 here. So I'm going to get 3 plus the square root of 3 times 1 plus 1 should equal x is 1. So 3 plus the square root of 3 times 1 is 3. So it's 3 plus 1 equals 1. So 3 plus the square root of 4 should equal 1. So does 3 plus the square root of 4 is 2 equal 1? That is definitely false. Therefore, x equals 1 is an extraneous solution. Now we need to check x equals 8. So that means I plug 8 here and here in my original equation. I get 3 plus the square root of 3 times x, which is 8, plus 1, should equal x, which is 8. So 3 plus the square root of 3 times 8 is 24, plus 1. So I get 3 plus the square root of 24 plus 1 is the square root of 25. So I get 3 plus, what's the square root of 25? 5. Should equal 8. 3 plus 5 is 8. Does 8 equal 8? That is a true statement. Therefore, the solution to this problem is x equals 8.